Here with our Chamber 5 at 5, and this time around I'm talking to Confluence College Admissions Consulting with Jim Bishop, and it's a mouthful, so I got it right this time, didn't I, Jim?
You got it right,
okay.
And thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate having you here because we've been able to talk to businesses that aren't nationally known names, and so, something that everybody knows about that particular business. Being able to talk to people that are amongst the people in the community that have come up with creative businesses, which is what it sounds like you've done here. So tell me what it is exactly that you do.
I work with high school students and their families on every aspect of the college admissions process. So I start with some clients as early as 9th grade, and with my youngest students, we don't even mention the word college. It's just about helping them to get set up to be successful in high school, help them figure out what they'd like to do, what they're good at, and then gradually move toward talking about, that might translate into an interesting college major.
For myself, I can't imagine how great this would be for one of my kids, because I have been doing the same thing since I was 15 years old. And it was really hard for me whenever my kids were talking about trying to figure out what they wanted to do in life, because for me, I had no question. I knew about it. And so I couldn't turn around and give them advice. So I could see where that would come in handy for other people that may be in that same similar situation.
What you were saying about you as a parent having your own perspective.
Yeah.
Often, as much as that information is helpful, it can actually work against you when you're working with teenagers.
Yeah.
Because teenagers need to figure out their own path, and sometimes even just mom and dad making an innocent suggestion can come off as pressure, or you're trying to control me, you're trying to manipulate me. And so part of what I like to do is to help take some of that stress out of the family situation.
Sure.
And help
bring
kids
it to an objective standpoint.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I'm not perfectly objective either. Because I know what some careers make in terms of what kinds of salaries you're going to make, and so I don't want my clients landing with something that isn't going to pay back their bills.
Right.
But I can say the same thing a parent said in my role and be heard by the student in a way that parents never would be.
Right.
So it can really remove some of that power dynamic between the student and the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what you're talking about, I can also see, whereas they may not know the subjects in school that they really should be focusing on to get to a certain career or whatever, and it helps to have that outside influence for drawing another personal experience. I remember in high school, whenever I was maybe a sophomore, junior, I was looking at a college handbook, and I kept seeing, and this will date me, but whenever I would see that a prerequisite was typing, and I was like, oh man, first of all, I had to find out what a prerequisite was. And then after I found that out, I took typing. Now people take that for granted because that's a totally different thing. And everybody's like typing on their laptops and stuff. But back then, it was like, oh crap, I better learn this before I go to college. So I could say that in other than typing, that there's things that you're able to recognize to be able to help the family.
For sure. For example, kids who want to go to a highly selective college, they're going to need to take some AP classes if those classes are offered by the high school, or honors classes. Or it might be that the student's interested in a trade. They might be interested in welding.
Right.
And in that case, why not get a leg up on some of those skills related to welding, either through school or through some kind of an internship or work experience.
Right.
So there's a lot of different paths that kids can take, some of which they're aware of and some of which they're not. Culturally, we tend to lean a little bit more toward the passion side. I think we don't really know how to identify aptitudes as well. Let's say a student does well in their sophomore year math class.
Right.
Parents will say, "Oh, you're good at math." It's like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe you had an easy teacher.
Right. Yeah.
I actually do these aptitude surveys with kids to help them figure out what they are actually good at and build the conversation from there. So sometimes they're surprised.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have a really narrow view of what they think they're good at. They think I'm good at creative writing and nothing else.
Right.
And then we'll do the survey, and the first thing on the list will be aerospace engineering. And they're like, I didn't know that, but that sounds cool.
Yeah, right. Now I'm interested.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And I saw what they make.
Yeah,
it turns out
that helps. You bet. So I would like to be able to tell people how they get a hold of you to find out, take advantage of your services.
Yeah, well, they should visit my website. So it's www.confluenceadmissions.com. All the information about my packages that I offer is all on my website, contact information.
Thanks again for being a part of the Chamber 5 at 5.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much.